conversation the other night is like when you bring people on the team, you really have to trust that one, they have, the best intentions in mind. But sometimes, and this is no slight to anyone, right? Sometimes you have to be okay with someone doing 80% of what you would be able to do.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right?
that's like the secret sauce.
That's the secret sauce, right? Because no
Because it'll
one,
still be good.
yeah, it'll still be good, and
Yeah.
no one will have all the contextual knowledge around what it took to do these things. And we have to check ourselves, check our own egos, and say, you know what? This person is dope in their own way. They're going to bring something to the table that I just can't do. And you got to allow them to do that and be okay with if it doesn't go the way that you envision. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like constantly like working on that. And one thing that I really appreciate, and I can always sense it, would be like if I'm leaning on her too much, or if I'm like overstepping my boundaries in something that, she's been running.
Give us the polite.
What do I do?
Well,
the nasty nice.
I could just sense it because I'll just say it. I'm like, look, if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, because I'm feeling anxious internally.
Yeah.
Right?
But you do that
and
a lot,
I feel
though.
I feel your angst.
You're very
I'm
like,
you're good about that.
yeah.
Just let me know. Welcoming for the first time.
Yes.
We have Brandy, who is, I'm going to just say agency ops, but she really handles a lot of stuff. But is an amazing operational thinker, has an amazing operations mind. So welcome to your episode. And,
Thank you.
The Heavy on Brand podcast. I'm sure there's a much smoother way to introduce this, but it is what it is right now. We got V, who's the director of client experience. We got our ultimate growth strategist and marketer, and Kelsey.
Welcome to the show. We're all organic.
Yeah.
Organic,
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast, and we have some amazing guests who have already introduced, so I'm kind of working backwards. But anyway, let's talk about the topic of scaling. I know we talk about it a lot internally at CT. But we also talk with a bunch of brands. We've helped some brands scale, but it's one of those things where you have to be careful, because it's one thing to say, hey, I want to scale, but it's another thing to actually go down the path of doing it. And it's another thing to make sure that you're ready as a company, as an individual, to scale. So I'll open it up by saying this. We've had so many conversations about trying to scale CT, but we've been very intentional about doing it the right way and kind of taking our time. Because one, you have to have the right team in place. You have to have the right processes in place. You have to have the right mindset in place even. Because when you start to put pressure on your system or put pressure on the thing that you've been doing, inevitably things are going to break. And I think we've done that a few times. We've made some mistakes. I've made some mistakes around that. We're trying to do too much. But I think they're valuable lessons because we can actually relay that experience over to the customers and the clients that we work with. Say, hey, you're marching down the path that we've already gone down. You don't want to do that. So I'll pick on Kelsey first.
Yeah.
Right.
As you were talking, I was just thinking about how scaling looks so different for different people. So I've worked with clients who have scaled in different ways. So one of the examples that comes to mind is that I had a client that got $3 million in seed funding for their tech startup. And at first it was just me and the founder. I was supporting marketing. That was the first investment that they made, which was a great one. And then we went on this sprint to get them investing dollars, and they had to scale by hiring using that money. So that money was to help hire engineers to build out the platform, to then go for another round of investing with the new platform to share. And so it was really interesting to kind of be on the ground floor of that, to see it done well by hiring really great talent. So the team was, submitted resumes, and they did a really great job vetting the individuals. And I kind of thought, like, these guys are really smart. They get paid a lot. They were taking pay cuts because they believed in this vision, which is another good point, that they had this loyalty and energy for the brand, even if they could go somewhere else like Amazon and make, maybe twice as much. And so they're still all together, I feel like 3 years in, still building, still evolving the brand. And so that was a really great way to see scaling with money. That's like one side of it, scaling with some dollars. And then I feel like on the other side, I've seen scaling similar to how CT is growing, and it's incremental, but there is so much work, right? So I have a client who has a ton of work and opportunity coming in, but it is hard to find good people. And so many of us are pleasantly overwhelmed. And so they're really having a difficult time scaling, but it's happening. It's happening at a realistic rate. The people who are there are excellent, so they can handle everything that's coming in. And so I kind of look at that as an example for my agency as well, because I get nervous, like trying to scale and try to hire out. Like, what do you all think about that? And just like personnel, right? Like loyalty to your brand, loyalty to what you're building. It's scary.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and from my opinion, and I think you all have seen it as well, a lot of people think they want to scale because they see that on the gram. They see other people and other entrepreneurs talking about, oh, we've scaled to 7, 8, 9 figures or whatever it may be. And then you start to adopt their dream or kind of their mindset around it when you're not really looking at what it takes to do that.
Or you don't want to have such a
100%.
big fund. You can be comfortable, with your $1 million company and like a couple of consultants,
Yeah, because everybody, to your point, everyone's version of scaling looks different and it should look different.
Yep.
So, I've always appreciated the honesty and the transparency that we've had collectively around, all right, if we push this button, if we do these things, are we in a position to be able to handle it? And I know V, you and I have always had conversations around this, and you've always said like, I don't know, B, we got this, we got that, we got this. Kind of talk to us about what that thought process has been for you, not only with us, but even with some of the other people that you work with, because there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I think Kelsey broke it down really good with like the 2 ways of scaling. You scale with funding, and then on the other side, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing, you're just scaling with grit. You're scaling with people, and you're scaling with like this one client opens the door for another client. When that other client comes in or other opportunity, you don't know what you're getting yourself into until you get into it. And hopefully you've done a great job with acquiring talent that's down with you to say, okay, let's figure this out. And I think for us, that's kind of like, we're strategic enough to know like, okay, here's what it's going to take to get this done. But when you start to pull back the layers and realize all of the work, not just the glamorous work, like the behind the scenes, non-sexy work, which is building out all these templates and decks and all these things to get the stuff done, getting on these client calls weekly, showing up to events, just the late night work that's heavy. I think that's where I'm like, okay, let's look at what this really means for everybody, because burnout is a real thing. Overwhelm is a real thing. Overworking yourself is a real thing. And then just making sloppy mistakes is a real thing when you just have too much work going on. So I think for me, because we've worked so hard to get to the level of attracting high level clients, high profile work, you just got to settle in and say, okay, it's okay to have 2 to 3 clients at a very high level. The money's coming in, everybody, bills are getting paid, retainers are getting paid. Let's settle in right here and just look at all of the things on the table and how we can take this to the next level by just building some stronger processes, right? Because a lot of times you think you want to scale, we have to get we're in that process now. We got to get every single template done and every SOP and ClickUp has to be templatized right. And as soon as a client comes in, we kick off, we plug in. And unfortunately, that's just not the reality of just like slowing down and building that. So I think for me, when I look at it, it's just like, okay, what is the realistic time that can get this stuff done? And how can we do it without everybody being overwhelmed, but still find that pocket of opportunity to build and to grow and to be prepared for what's next?
Yeah, great points. I mean, one of the biggest components of scaling too is, and we've talked about it a little bit, is making sure your back end processes are where they need to be.
Yeah.
So I went down this path, Brandy and I went down this path of trying to find a Notion consultant, right? And it was like, all right, well, we need to get all the client work in one system. We need to have a library of like SOPs. We need to have the processes laid out. We need to have our Loom videos. We need to have our pitch decks, all these things in kind of one centralized hub in place so that no matter who comes in, people can go in and get up to speed fairly quickly and know exactly where to go. So I went down this process of like interviewing a couple of Notion consultants, all phenomenal. And then Brandy sat on each of those calls with me, right? And then I think after like the third one, she pinged me and was like, yo, you got a second to talk? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, yo, I think I can build this all out and click up. And I'm like, word? So I said, I'm just using Notion because I probably saw an ad on it. Everybody knows like I like being sold. So I probably saw some sort of ad. They're like, yeah, we need to get on Notion. And we have all this stuff.
Marketing to the marketer.
Right.
Yeah.
But Brandy literally pulled up her library of like processes, and I was blown away. And I was like, yo, you've been sitting on this treasure trove and you hadn't said nothing to your boy about it. Right?
And he's over here stressed out about it.
Brandy, talk to us about your background, your experience, but your thinking and your mindset around how to leverage processes to help organizations scale.
So I have been an executive assistant and office manager for like over a decade. And in the last like corporate position that I had, I worked with operations and project management, and I really honed in on those skills. You know, it was for a private equity firm. So I had my hand in a lot of different things, which I like to do. In terms of processes for CT specifically, I think that a lot of it comes to first doing a realistic look at what you currently have. You need to do like a really good analysis in terms of what's working, what's not working. And you also have to be realistic in terms of what you're married to. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a certain way of doing things and they don't realize that those things, if you want to scale, you're going to have to change some of what you're doing, you know? So definitely realizing that as an entrepreneur, you sometimes need to get out of your own way. And in terms of my thinking around that, I think that it's super important, like you guys said, to have a really good team, but also make sure that you have everything really organized. I'm very type A. I'll color code everything. And yeah, I just think it helps with onboarding and with, you know, client management and everything to kind of make sure that from A to Z, everything's kind of buttoned up. I know you and IB have had some conversations in terms of, well, how do we templatize this and how do we, you know, build this out? And we've had to change it a few times, and that's okay. So even while you're in the process of growing, not being married to any one thing, I think just knowing that scaling is a mindset of like evolution, and you have to be ready to do it if you want to grow.
It's a quotable.
Is that a quote? That's what I was going to say. Add it to the book, Justin.
That's a quotable because it's so
scaling
true.
is a mindset of evolution.
It's so true.
Yeah.
We might have to sit on that. Snaps. Ooh.
Is that the title?
Right. That's the title. No, it's true.
Yeah. And to that end, I mean, if you're scaling or if you're trying to scale or prepping to scale, you have to make sure you're doing stuff or you're implementing things that are sustainable. We talk all the time around no one person should be the end all be all for any business. And I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're building something from the ground up, it's real easy to get kind of caught in that mode. But as you start to graduate to the next phase of your business, you got to prepare for the worst. And that worst is what happens if I need to step away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Can the business run without me? Right. And that doesn't mean just one segment of the business. It's literally every segment. That's the financial part of things. That's the sales operation. That's client fulfillment. That's strategy. That's content creation. Everything that it takes to run a business. You have to, and that's tough for people like us, right? I think we all have some degree.
Like, could everyone share what that experience is like for you? Because it gives me the worst anxiety. That's my ultimate goal with scaling, to be able to at least have 1 to 2 people who can manage things when I have to step away. But maybe for you, Brian and V, like some of your other clients, you often are expected to be the person on the call, right? Even though you know someone else is capable, and like how to disconnect from that while having someone that you trust there that also has the tools to show up the right way is really difficult.
It's hard.
And I like haven't really figured that out yet. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs deal with that.
Yeah, I think so. I would love to hear your perspective because I'm that person for certain clients where,
Yeah,
and
little gift over here.
he said to me like, I gotta relinquish control. I gotta like delegate, and that's hard because it's not that you think that you're better or that no one can do it. It's just, what it took to lock this client or this person in. And like you sold them on the trust.
You're amazing, but like, you have other things going on too. So it's like, trying to extend you grace and be like, listen, I know this is my thing too, but you are supporting me in this way and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. To be honest. I mean,
you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. I think there's a huge degree of trust. I think that's been like the common theme around trust. Kind of to our conversation the other night is like, when you bring people on the team, you really have to trust that, one, they have, the best intentions in mind. But sometimes, and this is no slight to anyone, right? Sometimes you have to be okay with someone doing 80% of what you would be able to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
That's like the secret sauce.
That's the secret sauce, right? Because
it'll still be good.
Yeah, it'll still be good, and no one will have all the contextual knowledge around what it took to do these things. And we have to check ourselves, check our own egos, and say, you know what? This person is dope in their own way. They're going to bring something to the table that I just can't do. And you got to allow them to do that and be okay with if it doesn't go the way that you envision. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Yeah. Right. 100%. But it's like constantly like working on that. And one thing that I really appreciate, and I can always sense it, would be like if I'm leaning on her too much, or if I'm like overstepping my boundaries in something that, she's been running.
Give us the polite.
What do I do?
Well,
the nasty nice.
I could just sense it because I'll just say it. I'm like, look, if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, because I'm feeling anxious internally.
Yeah. But you do that a lot,
I feel your angst.
You're very like,
you're good about that.
Yeah. Just let me know. And you be like, I got it. And I'm like, okay.
Because I feel the angst and I get it. It's a real thing because it's a lot of weight on how you move. And like, we typically handle things the same as far as just like being clean, buttoned up, communicating very like seamlessly, getting to the point. But there's also like ways I may handle something that he may not, or like I may do a doc and he may do an Excel sheet, or just, those little nuanced things. And I think to his point, it's like, I got it. And then you just execute, you know what I mean? It's a balance.
Yeah. It's like, y'all seen, well, I don't know if anyone would know this reference. You may know this reference, but when the Redeem Team did that documentary, it was like Kobe and LeBron and all that. And LeBron was teasing Kobe and was like, I've been playing against you for 5 years and I've been trying to figure out what this play call was. And he was like, all that means is get out the way. Right? Straight like that. Right, yeah, straight like that. Of course, we have to edit that out. But that is...
You can't curse on this podcast?
Yeah, we can curse. We can curse. But that is kind of like the play. We should just, either make some merch that does that. Or if we're on a call, V be like, all right, B.
I like that.
Get out the way.
On a client call, you just like, back off of this one.
Facts.
But I mean, how do y'all handle just checking yourselves? Because it's more scaling, in my opinion, scaling is more about removing the ego than really anything else. It starts with the ego, your own ego.
Yeah. So for me, I'm in that position of like where you are now. CT is like, as far as having a team of like experts in their own spaces. I'm building that. Shout out to Morgan behind the camera. And I think to your point, it really starts with mindset of like, what does scaling look like for me? So again, like everything we're saying, like my mind went through that. Like scaling to me means I could step away. When life happens, I have a team of people who I trust that can pick up the ball and run with it. They can hit me, they can text me, they can call me, but they got it. And so I just kind of like attracted that, right? Started with the job description, started with building, then you bring on people, and then you're like, okay, then it gets real. Then now it's like a constant mindset of, I brought on Morgan because Morgan is a production guru. This is what she does. We're growing and we're learning together. So like, let Morgan do it, right? Like give her the guidance, do what we need to do, have our meeting, and then release the reins. And then I think it's like something magical that happens when you do that and it's working and you're over here working on something totally different and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
This is how you
This is
start to
nice.
scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a mindset. It's the ego release. And it's like, you know what? The job is getting done.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't trust this person, why? I have to trust myself enough to trust that I know how to bring on talent.
Yeah.
And if the talent doesn't work, then it's like no love lost, but we gotta pivot and we gotta shift. So
Yeah, I feel like it takes a level of like entrepreneurial emotional intelligence
1,000%.
to find those people, right? Or connect with them. Like I remember when I met V, we were on a client call. We didn't know each other. And it was the first call. She was just talking, going through her updates and her thing. And I messaged the girl to the side that brought me on. I'm like, who is this? Like, who is she? You know what I mean? I was like, immediately I caught it. I was like, we're going to be friends. Like, she's legendary. It's effortless. She's on her ish. And it was a lot to do. It was an overwhelming project. She was managing it so well. And like, we both kind of had the same work ethic, but I knew that immediately. And then that led to like other things. And even some of the team members now that I have similarly to like scaling, I met, one of my main consultants at an event that I was doing. I was hosting a workshop for a local organization in DC, and she like came up to me after, you know, everyone's coming up to you like or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. Then she sends me an email. She follows up with her like portfolio and all these things that she works on, all this content she's developed and stuff. And I'm like, okay, you're awesome. And then it just kept growing, and her energy was great. Her personality is amazing. She's one of those people that checks in on you personally too. Yeah. And so that was amazing. Then I have a great graphic designer who works at all hours of the night, which is toxic, but that's me. And it's like, oh, you worked on that last night. You knocked it out like less than 24 hours. I'm not even going to tell the client because they're going to expect that every 24 hours. But I was like, oh, you know, you're amazing. So it is hard to like, you know, find that, but having that intelligence to be like, I caught it. I see it
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when it comes to bringing on people to the team, you really have to trust your gut instincts. You know, that like vibe check that you do with someone, because you can kind of tell on a call if you're not really feeling somebody or if, you know, maybe I mean, and it happened, for example, like on some of these calls that we had with like the Notion experts, you know, everyone says that they're an expert. Everyone has their way of going about something. But it's about finding the team that speaks your language, so you don't have to translate as much.
Yes.
That's super important, because when you're in the thick of it, you don't want to have to be, you know, trying to break everything down in a way.
You don't have time for it.
Yeah, you just don't have time.
You know?
You just don't.
You don't.
It's like they get it.
So yeah, thankfully, you know, I feel like we have a team where we all kind of just get it, and we're all on the same page, which is nice.
100%.
And the cool thing about, you know, marching down the path of scaling, it really does. I mean, if you can get the right systems in place and get the right mindset in place, it can provide a level of balance that we all need. Because when you're trying to do too much, when you're trying to do everything, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and you just can't deliver that way consistently. And then we stress ourselves out because we think, you don't become an entrepreneur and think, well, I'm just going to kind of like coast, like the good ones, the ones that are able to sustain, right? You have a mindset of, I can tackle any and everything and I can build the world. But that's good to get you going, but it's not a good mindset to have to keep you sustained. So I know I would love to hear everyone's perspective on how you've been able to maintain just kind of that balance as we've all kind of gone to, you know, the next level and graduated to the new thing. How do you maintain your sanity, but have comfort in knowing that this is the thing that I just need to trust right now. And there's a reward on the other side of this.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think, so I think personally, it is the mindset, the balance. It's, I believe that entrepreneurship is spiritual. And I think that when you, depending on like your walk of faith and like what you believe in, but I do genuinely believe that entrepreneurship, it is a personal journey, and like your business, your brand, your development develops as fast as you develop as a person, because it's genuinely your vision, your dream, your thing. Like you are building the thing, depending on what the thing is. So I think that the balance comes in like your personal development and the work that you're doing within yourself, so that when you show up in spaces, especially when you have the responsibility and the privilege of leading a team and people who are trusting you to like pay their retainer monthly, or like you now have a different responsibility when you're paying invoices.
Yes.
And when you're also responsible for people who are looking to you to develop them or like pour into them. So you have to show up in the space as your best self, even on your worst day, and remove all the other stuff to show up for like your client or to show up for your team. So I think as you develop and mature as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, or just being on a team, like that's where it starts. That's what I would say is like, focus on the focus. All the personal stuff goes out the door. This person sitting in front of me is looking for me to lead this just to get to the next thing. And so that's how I look at the balance. And then I show up in that way so that those around me show up in that way too. Like that's the expectation of no drama, no BS, and no one's perfect.
Yeah.
But like, let's talk about why you're being snappy today, or like, let's talk about tone. Like, you good? Like, what's going on? Let's take a step to the side because it's a thing that we all feel. So
Yeah.
I would say that that's my way of kind of balancing the
Preaching on
chaos.
that one.
Yeah. The first thought I had was that I have no balance.
But you do.
I know I do. That sounds terrible.
I see you on the ground.
Feels like, it feels like I don't have balance sometimes.
Yeah.
But then as you were
That's
speaking,
real. That's
you know,
real.
as you were speaking, I was like, I think I wake up every day with a lot of gratitude
Amen.
for like my position in life and the opportunities that I have. You know, I'm working from home, even though I'm working with all these people across the country and sometimes across the world. And so I'm grateful. And I think I check myself when I'm like doing too much or overperforming or feeling like I have to do things really quickly, you know, deliver an ask really quickly.
Yeah.
And I find balance in that. And I find, you know, balance in my checkbook. Like, this is cute. And
Yeah, it's
so
working.
it balances my energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I'm working hard
That's
and I'm
real.
being paid well. And so
That's
now
real.
I feel a good balance in terms of like the value that I'm giving and that I don't feel overworked and underpaid. So I
Yeah.
feel like I have a lot of gratitude within the balance.
Yeah.
And then, I unplug aggressively. So I might work a 12-hour day, but I'm like, if I'm working 12 hours today, tonight I'm going to sit VIP. I'm going to sit courtside somewhere, and it could be a last minute decision. And so I think that helps me manage the fact that I know I'm going to overwork. I know I'm going to have long days. I'm not going to be that person that like prioritizes self-care frequently. But when I do it, I go hard, and that feels good to me. So
Yeah.
Yeah. To B's point earlier, when I first became an entrepreneur, I heard this quote, something along the lines of, you know, you leave corporate working 40 hours a week to become an entrepreneur and work 80.
For sure.
And I was like, oh, damn.
yeah.
I'll be ready 80.
Yeah. You don't realize it until you're in it. But thankfully, you know, I love what I do, and that I think that plays a huge part in entrepreneurship, actually enjoying what you do and the service you provide for people.
Yeah.
With all that, you know, with all the things that I want to give and serve my clients in such an amazing way, I am realizing more as I scale and grow that boundaries are huge when it comes to not only client work, but boundaries with yourself. Because kind of like to your point, I'll work and not even, I mean, it feels 24 hours like you're just, you know, sleep. And then you get up and you just get back on the laptop.
To your desk,
And just go after it, you know? But really maintaining like boundaries and that like that self-care in terms of, you know, I have to eat. Oh, damn, you know, I've been on calls all day. I haven't eaten, or I haven't, you know what I mean? Just trying to remember that my clients are only going to get the best out of me if I take care of myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great combo, y'all. Appreciate the insight as usual. Always dropping gems across the couch, across the internet, all that good stuff. But, you know, we got to get out of here. A few of us got some calls with some clients coming up, so we got to prep for that. But as usual, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast. If you want to keep up with the show, go to our website at thecarbonthread.com and IG at thecarbonthread. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And if you need more information on all things marketing and branding, check us out at thecarbonthread.com. Until next time, stay heavy.